Thank you. To follow one of my heroes, I basically knew what he was going to say because I read everything that Dr. Murray writes on these issues, and some of the thoughts I might even think are a little bit original because I talk about the white out of wedlock birth rate in my newest book, White Ghetto, and how it is reflecting, and Middle America is reflecting a lot of the inner city decay. I'm echoing. Am I okay? Do you guys hear me okay? In knowing that, I thought, okay, then I'm going to, I didn't know I was following him, but either way I knew what he was going to say. Because, well, no, look, I'm probably one of the only people in the country that reads everything that you write, so you should love me. And your wife is here. And your wife is here, so she can attest to it, huh? You're only one more article. Oh, God, same thing. It's just really one of my heroes. And I wish I could say that you're even original, but some of our, I suppose, people that are, both of our heroes have written on these things 40, 50, 60 years ago. And I like to go all the way back to every single time we discuss poverty. Frederick Bastiat, what are we doing? And he outlines in the law how things should work. So that's what I thought about. I talk about today. Many of you know my background, that I, as my bio said, I lived in the welfare state and showed up in Washington, D.C., basically to help to consult on the GOP's bill to dismantle the welfare state. And I'm still on that journey. I've seen a lot of expansion of what we used to call the welfare state, but I still don't believe that the government belongs in charity. And I'm doing everything I can in my life to make sure that they get out. What we saw in Katrina was just one part of the problem. I write about this regularly, and what wasn't in my bio, but I have to make a plug for myself because I'm a columnist now with Scripps Howard, and so since I have to sit down and write weekly, John and I were talking about how grueling it is to write weekly. As soon as one is done, you're thinking about the next one. So since I have to do this, the least I can do is tell people that I am writing weekly so that they then can go and find me weekly, and I'll have folks that are appreciating everything that I've pinned out. But what I wanted to say about Katrina in the short time they've given us is that the answer is quite simple, and we've known it all along. When you think about poverty, there is no excuse for poverty in this country. There's no excuse that individuals cannot get out of poverty, whether it's in one generation and or in their own personal life, because it's just basically decisions that have to be made on a very personal level. We all know the first step out of poverty. The first step out of poverty is self-government, recognizing that we have an obligation to be self-sufficient, to be responsible with the choices that we make. When you think about Katrina, what makes it different from what we see all over the country? Well, what makes it different is that people have made decisions to live in housing projects. That's what we saw. We saw people that live in one of the 3,500 housing projects that are across this country. And as Dr. Murray pointed out, this is not new. We just haven't thought about it in an awful long time. But it is up to the individual. They have an obligation even to their neighbor, to be self-sufficient, to be responsible with their decisions. And this is not something that government can force individuals to do. And it's perhaps why not only the Great Society folks, but even under our administration, the Faith-Based Initiative, are scratching their head about how in the world can we come up with some type of technical answer to this question of poverty. We can't, because it's a moral question. And the first step out is something that individuals have to make a decision that they want to do to get out. They have to be responsible with choices, and at a very early age. Most of the problems that we see in our country when it comes to poverty are rooted in one thing: sexual misconduct. People that produce children before they marry. People that do not recognize that they have an obligation to themselves and to the people that they're affecting to be responsible with their sexual decisions. So the people that are in poverty in our society are people that choose to be lawless in their sexual behaviors. Maybe I shouldn't use that term because we're being filmed, but whatever term you want to do to make it a little bit easier, and they find themselves in pregnant situation and have children outside of marriage. And that is who is poor, struggling. When you think about poverty rates in general society, including Black America, those that live in poverty that are married before producing children run about 8% of the whole. Those that are not, regardless of your race, it's an equal opportunity destroyer. 65% are going to live in poverty when you have children outside marriage. Now, what can we do once somebody decides, I want to look at that first step, I'm going to look very clearly at that first step, and I'm going to start making decisions accordingly? What can we do as a society then to help them so they can escape the financial situation that they have put themselves in because they're now forced to, in some cases, after welfare reform, work? And It's very difficult to work, in particular a full-time job, and you have children, and you have nobody to help you with those children. There are some things that we can do as a society to help people recover themselves from A, the lives that some of them have created themselves, but B, to break the cycle for their children so that in one generation they're not faced with some of these same decisions. Well, the next great step is work, is making sure that we create an environment for work where people can prosper in their work. As I talk to Housing Project women all over this country, the key to work for them is not some politician in Washington, D.C. promising them that they're going to increase the minimum wage or make somebody else pay for some benefit. The key to work for them is to get in any job and work harder than the person above you. Not the one at the top. They're no worry about, what do they call it now, cement ceiling? Used to be glass. Now it's cement. I guess it's not glass anymore because those ladies like short skirts and they might be able to see up in it. And then I don't know why. I don't know when it turned to cement, but it used to be a little glass ceiling, but now it's a cement ceiling. No, the key is not breaking that. The key is working harder than the person just above you. I have to talk to Housing Project women about this. But why do I say women more than men? Because men that Dr. Murray is referring to, that most of them end up locked up because they are not working, they're not being productive once they leave school, if they even finish school. The reason that they're able to live this reckless type of life is because the women in their lives allow them to. The women in their lives allow them to move in and out of these projects unchecked, undisciplined, and not working. And when women have to get up and start, hitting that time clock, and then having to come in and then take care of all the other responsibilities, they become a little bit more strict with that man in their life. And hopefully, in a very short period of time, we'll begin to see the trends change with the behaviors of some of these underclass men that are prowling on their neighbors. So the key for work for an individual is very different than for what we as a society can do to help make sure that work is available. That's why discussions are important. It's why it's important that organizations like this particular one continue to address these issues on Capitol Hill, because we need a limited role when it comes to markets. We need a limited role of government when it comes to markets. We need to reduce labor law, not increase labor law. We need to reduce the heavy hand and burdensome hand of government over small businesses, not increase it. When you think about child care, which is another area that is always thrown into this equation about, well, okay, when we want people to go to work, what are we going to do about their children? Well, we need, again, to start looking at child care law and begin to reduce the heavy burden of government over people that can give in their own local communities, so that then we can create an environment in some of our harder hit neighborhoods so that that person can be more productive in their work life. Third step out of poverty is the training and education. Now, this is twofold as well, because not only do we have to make sure people begin work in that entry level so they can work harder than people above them, but then in that environment they can get additional training. This also, here again, is not the responsibility of government to provide additional training programs. What government has to do, what we as a society can do, is remove ourselves from this monopoly that we've created, K through 12, so that people then will be able to use those resources to get the education in the beginning that they are going to need to be more productive later in their work life. When you look at the retraining programs, what are they, like 171 federal programs that deal with just at-risk problems? When you start to look at what are most of these training programs all about, it's what they didn't get K through 12. So we have to create an environment. We have to continue to fight for school choice vouchers. And we can start with just the poor, just the underclass, just poverty level, wherever we want to do it. I think you were talking earlier, Michelle, about the Independent Women's Forum getting more involved in school choice issues, and that's wonderful, in particular with the project that is here in Washington, D.C., but the financial burden being placed on these families now that have gotten right up against the threshold of saying, okay, I think there's about $30,000. Once you start increasing your income, you tend to lose your voucher. That has to be fixed, because there's a problem right now in what was passed a few years ago in the D.C. budget, so that women can have vouchers to send their poor children to any school that they want to, public or private. But we need that all across this country. We cannot afford to go one neighborhood at a time like we're doing right now, fighting for school choice vouchers. There has to be sweeping momentum to get vouchers, and not just so that these women have the resources they need to be able to complete their degrees, and now I'm talking specifically those that are pregnant and are not finished high school, but more specific for why we have to have school choice vouchers is so we can break the cycle of poverty, so that we can start getting these 9, 10, 11-year-olds early enough in life to get a moral framework within them, so that they then will understand their first obligation to society, which is to be responsible with their choices. The fourth thing we need to make sure that we ensure for poor people in this society is that they have options for saving and investing, because that's how you break poverty in your life. The fourth step out of poverty, anyone can do it. Well, we had Social Security discussions about reforming and allowing people to take just a little 2% of their income. instead of sending it to a black hole that they don't own and can't transfer to their family. We should have pushed that issue, and we need to continue to push this issue and make sure that not only for the greater society and the benefits that we know through markets and mutuals that will help us rescue our retirement system for everybody, but in particular for the poor.